Hello. My name is Adam Jabber. This is the Out of Bounds podcast, and this is take two. Um, we have a great episode today with Caroline Gleich. We talk about everything from advocacy to POW, protect our winters. We talk about a recent trip up G2, a lot of vomiting. What else did we talk about? Talked about the Mountain Gazette article for a minute at some point. And we talked about all kinds of stuff. I really enjoyed catching up with Caroline. I haven't talked to her in a couple years, and I have no idea how she stays so positive. I also have no idea why she saves screenshots of negative comments for months at a time. I will never understand that, but she does, and I guess you can hear why. Before we jump into the episode, we have a few things going on that are worth mentioning. First of all, subscribe to the newsletter because there's important things that go out all the time. Like this week, I told you about this sock situation that I'm going to tell you more about in a minute. What else did I talk about? Adam X's wonderful episode with Andrew Alexander King. There's all kinds of stuff. We got a new show potentially dropping in the fall. Little teaser. It's a good one. It's a secret. It's a big one. And then we got a gear guide. Gear guide's coming up. It's dropping in October is the plan at the moment. It is wonderful. It has 8 contributors, something like that. And some of the most fun names in skiing. I mean, it's great. I'm like thoroughly enjoying the print process, and who knows, maybe we'll become a print product from now on after we've talked about it so much. Just kidding. We probably won't become a print product. It sounds like a lot of work, but we are for the gear guide. So keep in touch. It'll be the best gear guide that comes out this year, point blank. I don't care what other gear guide comes out. I don't care if it's outside or Gear Patrol or if somebody resurrects something and makes another. Like, I don't care. It's going to be the best gear guide that comes out this year, point blank. I'm calling it now. Everybody else, what's up? Leave a review on iTunes. Leave a review on Spotify. Those are important things. And now we get into the most important things, and that is paying our bills. First, we have Darn Tough. The number one thing that I'm going to tell you about Darn Tough is that at this juncture, when you listen to this episode, I will be 11 days into wearing the same pair of socks. I'm going for 55 days in a row, same pair of socks, not washing them a single time, doing an activity every day. And we're just running with this thing. The goal is to raise money for the High Fives Foundation, which supports disabled athletes. I'm psyched to be doing this. I'm like thrilled. I'm not psyched about wearing the socks for that long, but I'm thrilled we get to help out an awesome organization like High Fives, and hopefully in a pretty substantial way. So by day 11, we need to raise $110 for the day. So be sure to donate if you're listening on day 11. Day 12 is $120 for the day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of this thing, we're going to need some of you with deeper pockets to come help us out. So keep that in mind. Also, support Darn Tough. I mean, they make the best socks in the world. If I'm going to wear them for 55 fucking days in a row, like, you can trust that these are the socks that you can keep. We'll have a bunch of giveaways coming out with them soon. You'll have an opportunity for a bunch of free socks as well as a bunch of other free gear. We have a lot of great partners that have signed on for this project that we were doing. I can tell you right now, my feet are sweating and they're warm because I just went for a bike ride, and at least they don't smell. I mean, we're a few days in and my feet don't smell. So I think that's a good thing. It's a good sign. It's good. It actually bodes well for skiers out there. Like, same pair of ski socks. We all know we probably recycle them a couple more days in a row than we should. I'm just saying. Like, I know. Like, it's like an if you know, you know. I know. We got another sponsor for today. Ethan's slow on the draw here. He's asleep in the office as usual, and he closed the ad. What is going on with this man? Ugh, I'm just working with a bunch of amateurs around here. Sierra Nevada is a sponsor of the Out of Bounds podcast. They've been a great partner of ours, and I cannot wait for more of you to get your hands on the new Hop Splash. It is their non-alcoholic product. I have it right here, and it's wonderful. It is a hop-infused sparkling water, and it tastes so good. It tastes so good. Like it's actually ridiculous. You get one of these cold, and let me tell you, it's special. It's great. Hop infused seltzer, I know, is not what you guys are thinking. Like, it's great. Like, I promise, no bullshit. It's great. They also have Liquid Hoppiness, which is a juicy IPA that is new for them. They have a whole bunch of new products coming out all the time. Just go to your local beverage store, pick up a Sierra Nevada, and please enjoy responsibly. Must be 21 or older to enjoy this product, except for the non-alcoholic one. That one, I don't know about children, but, not 21-year-olds can drink this one. So, and people who don't drink, like Sierra Nevada, they support you. And the product's good. It's not just like a non-alcoholic beer that tastes like garbage. Anyway, that's that. On to our episode with Caroline Gleich. I hope you guys enjoy it. Once again, please leave a review on iTunes. I'm sorry this intro is very rambly, but I'm in a mood. I rode my bike. I'm having a great day. Feet are wet and, socks. Cool. Talk to you soon.
I'm Caroline Gleich. I'm a professional ski mountaineer and activist. I live in Park City, Utah. I'm originally from Minnesota, and yeah, that's about it.
That's it in a nutshell. There's a lot more to you for sure than just that. Let's talk about one of the things that I think we should talk about right off the rip, which is working with POW, Protect Our Winters, what that's been like, what your experience is with POW. I have Mario Molina on next week, and I think just having more conversations about the goal of Protect Our Winters genuinely is really important, because I think people get a very surface level view of what they do and what they're all about just from social media and just like random donate now posts. So if you don't mind, I'd kind of like you to elaborate what you do as an athlete, as a POW ambassador, like what that looks like on your end.
Yeah. I mean, I've been an activist for a lot of my adult life, and POW is one of the organizations that I work with as a climate activist and clean air activist and advocate for gender equality and all these other things. And so they've been really fun to work with. I just finished serving a year I was elected as the first ever ski team captain. So I oversaw a team of, I think we had 70 skiers. And it was like my job to kind of, reach out to them and try to encourage participation and help with messaging and different strategic campaigns that we were doing. And it was a huge honor to be elected by my peers into that position. And so that was super cool because I got to interact with the whole team. And yeah, I mean, I've worked with POW since 2011. I was one of the first athletes that was part of, it used to be called the Riders Alliance, and now it's just the Alliance because it's expanded to encompass so many more athletes like runners and cyclists, bikers. And I think it's a really powerful way to influence climate policy is through the lens of snow sports and through the outdoors. And so I've had the opportunity to go to DC with POW 6 times, and with them I testified to the Senate about the impacts of climate change on snow and mountaineering. So I've done a lot of stuff with POW over the years.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what does that look like in terms of actually doing things with POW, right? Like in terms of actually getting policies passed, making real change, right? Because I think so much of what POW does is the awareness of, that the climate is changing and that it's important and that people should know of it. But like, I think we're at the point now where people are fully aware that climate change is a real thing. There's plenty of idiots out in the world that are not aware, but ignoring the whatever percentage of morons that exist in the world, I feel like people kind of get the point right now, and the people that want to get it. What, in your mind, what's the next step for an organization like POW and you as an activist?
Yeah. That's a great question. And one of the things that I've learned about working on policy in 2010, I did a political internship for the governor of Utah's environmental advisor. So I've been working on energy and climate and clean air policy for a long time. And one of the things I've learned specifically about working on federal policy is that it takes a really long time to see the changes that we're trying to create. And so for something like the Inflation Reduction Act that just passed in the Senate, I mean, that's something we've been working on for 2 years. I mean, even before that, like I helped run this big Biden Harris for the Outdoors endorsement campaign because we had to work hard to elect a climate champion. And so I think it's sometimes hard to see like those immediate returns. You can see a lot faster change working on local policy, you know, even working in your neighborhood or your city or county level, like you can make change happen a little faster there. But the stuff that we've been working on with POW at the federal level, the relationship building and meeting with senators and representatives, like that stuff just takes a long time. And it's really just like a lot of networking in life. It's relationship building.
Yeah.
So like one of the cool things that I helped lead and initiate last winter is we did a ski day with Senator Martin Heinrich from New Mexico. So me and a couple other athletes, we joined him for a ski day in Taos, and we talked about electrification and renewable energy. And like he's been a huge champion for climate policy at the federal level. And so he texted me just like we've been communicating the last week as things were really heating up with the Inflation Reduction Act. And he's like, make sure you send a note to everyone at POW, like, thanks for all your hard work in getting this done.
Sick. That's awesome. That's got to be really good.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to feel really good to get that kind of note from somebody like that.
Yeah, it's super cool. And like he did an Instagram live with me. It was super last minute, but you know, having that kind of relationship and having someone like that elected in the Senate is amazing. And so what we're really working to do is to get a lot more people like Senator Heinrich elected and setting up more of these ski days and building these relationships. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of different angles. And so I can speak to what I do, what I've done with POW over the years, but now POW has like grown to become such a big organization that they're working on a lot of more complex things. And so I can't speak to like the whole depth of what they're working on because it's grown immensely, which is great.
Yeah, for sure. And I think they're great. Go ahead.
I was just going to say like that there's a place for, I think POW's become really big and that's great. They have more power. They have more ability to like boost ads and do more things. And I also think there's a huge power in like the scrappy grassroots environmental nonprofit in your backyard. And so I think people who are really committed should look at working with both, you know, if they can.
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah,
honestly, I
sorry.
think that like that grassroots campaign, I think that almost makes a bigger difference for like bang for your buck wise. I think that makes a bigger difference for what a lot of people can do in their day-to-day lives, right? Working with an organization that impacts their community, because person to person, it's really hard to make a substantial impact, right? If I just go and I ride my bike to work once a week, I'm really like, I'm kidding myself if I think I'm changing the world, right? However, working within your community and working with grassroots organizations like that, I think you can actually make a bigger impact with your time and with your dollar, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you have a chance. I mean, there's a local nonprofit in Utah called Heal Utah. Mm-hmm. And I've worked with them for over a decade. And they gave me like lobby training on how to show up and craft a statement and speak to your elected officials at a public meeting. So it's like POW, I've done a lot of stuff with POW, but also I've worked a lot on the local level with these grassroots environmental nonprofits, and they helped make me into the activist and person I am today with those trainings and all. Like, it's a building thing. Like, it's not like some people go to DC for their first time speaking to their elected officials, but a lot of people go to their city hall or to their state capitol, and that stuff is super important and impactful.
Yeah.
And it's so gratifying too.
Yeah, and one of the most important things that you talk about is that growth, right? And not necessarily being a perfect climate activist, right? Or a perfect champion or a perfect activist for anything, really, right? Like no human is perfect in every way, but trying our best is kind of important, right?
Well, what does the perfect activist even look like? Is it someone who just lives in a hole off the grid and never does anything? Or like
Right.
to get even darker, it's like it makes you go down a line of thinking. Like I struggled a lot with like depression and mental health issues. And so content warning, I'm about to talk about that. And if you go down a certain line of thinking, it's like maybe the world would be better off without me. Like it can make you have thoughts of like ending your own life if you go down that. Because like someone who's dead has no carbon footprint. Because anything you do, being a human, living like a living, breathing human on this planet, you're going to have some kind of impact on the environment. And so I try to do things that give me hope and joy and that give me energy for the for the fights, like for the activism that I do. And one thing I don't think we talk about enough in the when we talk about carbon footprints and when we talk about these different cost benefit analyses is like, where does joy factor in? Because I think that the most powerful activism comes from a place of joy and happiness. I think that's what will truly change the world. So like we have to factor in joy and happiness into like our decision making rationale and like the cost benefit of doing this or that. Like what gives your life purpose and meaning, and how can you use that as motivation for your advocacy?
Yeah, that's got to be a difficult thing to actually act on and feel consistently, given, especially when you have a platform like yours or anybody with a platform, right? Where you're constantly being fed from this machine that, like, I don't know, you almost hold on to the negativity that people swing your way all the time more than you, like, people can be like, oh, you're great, 100 times. And that one comment where somebody's like, you're a piece of shit, sticks with you more than anything else. It's crazy. So it's got to be hard to actually, like, hold on to that happiness in real life when a lot of the advocacy that happens in the world is on the internet, right? Because that's where you have the biggest reach total that you possibly can have is on this little fucking box on your phone.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard thing to do for sure. And I don't necessarily think that my skin has gotten thicker. I used to think, oh, I need to toughen up. Like, I need thicker skin. But I think what I've learned is that I'm more focused on my purpose of being here and like what I'm doing. And it's a lot easier than to sort of like ignore the noise and realize also that what people are saying has nothing to do with you and it's 100% about them.
Yeah, that's a hard one to stick to for sure.
It's super hard. And I'm not like always the best at it. And honestly, sometimes the things that people say get me really down. And sometimes I do think that it makes me censor myself. Like there's a lot of things that I would like to speak up about that I don't because I'm afraid of the comments. Frankly, like I live in deep fear of the comments. But like sometimes I'll just, if I don't have the energy or the emotional bandwidth, like I sometimes will just disable commenting for a few hours or, like sometimes you have to do that stuff to protect yourself.
I just block the shit out of people. Like I'm so rapid fire block lately.
I'm really rapid fire block lately too.
It's just, there's so many idiots about everything. Like people have a problem with everything. It's so crazy. There's no ability to just be like, this is positive. Let's be positive for a minute.
It makes me really sad because I think that there's a lot of people that are really unhappy in their lives and they're living this life of like quiet resentment. And when they see somebody who's like happy and doing something that they kind of wanted to do, they get really angry and lash out. And so I try to like meditate on compassion and empathy and hope and healing for them sometimes. And sometimes I'll be like, hey, what's really going on here? Like, is there something you need to talk about? Yeah. If someone's really angry, like sometimes I'll just respond with like crazy things because there's a lot of sad people and that makes me sad.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's shift off of some of this stuff for a minute here. Because I know, like, and we talked a few years ago, and one of the things we talked about was, like, somebody harassing you. There was a whole film that got made about, like, this dude calling you over and over again and how you kind of persevered through that, right? Like,
that's not what the film was about.
I know. I know, but, like, that's how it starts, right? Like, that's how the whole premise opens, right? It's not what it's about, right? I feel like it's, and I haven't watched it in 3 years, so like keep that in mind.
I know, and the film is like, it's, it came out 5 years ago, follow through.
Right.
So it's not like that current, but it was really powerful to use the actual voicemail that I received as the opening for the film.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's that's obviously what stuck with me. So I guess I'm giving you props because it's been a long time of dealing with this shit.
Yeah. I mean, I think I had my first, I know I had my first cyber harassment in 2009. So it's been going on for a really long time. Yeah.
Skin definitely gets thicker.
I don't think so. Like, I'm still really sensitive. I'm still a huge baby. Like, it hurts all the time. I think I have better strategies of coping now.
Is that all it is? Like, that's.
Yeah, because the wrong thing to do is to like toughen up and like build a wall around yourself to the world. I mean, great leaders and strong people are able to be vulnerable, and my softness and my emotional capacity is like one of my strengths, and I don't want to lose that because people are cruel. Like, I want to retain that empathy and that ability for deep feeling, but it's important to have, it's like training, right? Like every time you go to high altitude, well, actually, that's not a good analogy. It doesn't get easier. It's like training, right? Your ability for a certain kind of athletic performance builds over time if you keep practicing. And I think it's just like that. You create more tools for resiliency.
Yeah, the threshold grows in a sense.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm the opposite of you. Like I very much, as soon as it becomes a thing, like I just roast people. I come at people. I do not, like I am sensitive for sure. Like I have that vulnerable side, but like if somebody's just coming at me for things for no reason, I fry people. Like, and I get enjoyment out of it because it makes me feel better. And it's stupid, but I have a good time with it sometimes because it actually releases some of that stress from me. If I don't respond and I just let someone be an idiot, it actually bothers me significantly more.
Yeah, sometimes it takes me like a couple weeks or months to respond. Because it'll just like stew in my head. Yeah, like I don't like to do the knee jerk. I like to think about it. And then I hate to say this, but some of my best work comes from responding like after stewing on it for a few months.
That's good. I would have never, I have no control. I should work on that. This is a good lesson for me, I think.
Yeah, I do. So I like screenshot and save all the stuff before I delete and block. And so I have a full... Oh, yeah. Like, I like to have a record of it because that was what allowed me to figure out that my cyber stalker, the guy who called me, was like creating all these he was creating a bunch of different accounts.
Yeah.
And so it actually was a very clarifying moment for me, realizing that it was the same person doing all of them rather than like 20 different people.
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting.
So, yeah, I screenshot them all and then... Yeah, I think sometimes there's a lot of lessons we can learn from kind of deconstructing the way that people attack other people online.
Yeah, and it's funny that you do that with comments and that kind of shit. I do that when people like screw me over in real life. Like it's funny, I learned this from somebody else in the ski industry that is very well known for doing this kind of thing. Like I have a folder on my desktop and it's just like shit people did, and I just like keep the receipts and I keep it on this little folder on my desktop and just hold on to it just in case anything ever comes up. Like, so that kind of shit, like I hold on to for sure. But I don't know, comments and stuff, rapid fire block.
Yeah. Wait, I had a quick random question. Are you recording? Because I didn't get the notification on Zoom that it's recording.
Yeah, we're recording.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
That would have been...
And mine's recording
crazy.
on my side as well.
Yeah,
so
we would have lost a lot if we did not. Yeah, we did like the little check beforehand, so we'll cut and we'll start where like the start button is, and we'll start. Okay, and we'll
cool. Sorry about that. I was like,
yeah, just like a minute of freak out.
Yeah.
Okay, so recently you've had a couple expeditions, you've had a couple travels. So tell me a little bit about G2. Tell me a little bit about what you've been up to lately. Like, it just seems like every time I look at your page, I'm like, holy fuck, she's somewhere else.
Yes, I've been putting a lot of pressure on myself this year to go to a lot of places that I've been dreaming of. And I mean, my partner and we always talk about like if we're going to have kids. So I do kind of feel a little bit of pressure there. If we do have a kid, that I need to do a lot of stuff now, which is like maybe I put too much pressure on myself with that because it's been kind of stressful.
Yeah.
to get it all done.
I can't even imagine.
So we just got back from Pakistan, where we were trying to climb and ski Gasherbrum 2, which is the 13th highest peak in the world. It is located in the Karakoram mountain range, which is like part of the Himalayas, but it's pretty far from Everest and Choyu. And I've always wanted to go to the Karakoram, I think, since I first saw pictures of it at a slideshow 10 years ago. And it's one of those things I've been sort of keeping tabs on the geopolitical situation there over the last decade to, it's like kind of a scary place to go as an American woman and then as a woman. And so it seems like Pakistan is in a pretty, like, it's a little bit more stable and safe now than it's been. So yeah, it seemed like it was a good time to go.
Yeah, certainly is a little more stable than it has been in the past.
Yeah. And
how did it go?
So how did it go? We were feeling great until it's like a 60-mile trek along the Baltoro Glacier. And so Pakistan and the Karakoram mountain range, some people call it the third pole because it has massive glaciation. It's like one of the most glaciated parts of the world outside of the Arctic and Antarctic. So it's like known for having this, like the Baltoro is the glacier that we hiked along to get to Gasherbrum Base Camp, and it's over 50 miles long. So seeing the Karakoram and seeing like the Trango Towers and K2 and like just being there was incredible. And everyone I talked to about the trip, like I talked to Ingrid Backstrom, who tried to go ski it in 2008. And I talked to a few other folks who have been to get the Karakoram. And everyone was like, you're going to get, like, everyone has gotten really sick with like GI bugs.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Like, it's a really hard place to stay healthy. I mean, I read a lot about it. I was like, what is it in the water here that like makes us so sick? And I learned that over 50,000 children die a year of diarrhea.
What?
Yeah. And also Pakistan is the 5th most populous country in the world.
Yeah.
Like we think of Pakistan, I mean, I thought of it as like sort of small, and I didn't think that it was so populous, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a shit ton of people in Pakistan. Like there is a ton.
There's a ton, and the water is really polluted, unfortunately. Like it's really sad.
Recipe, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, everything was going great, and my partner and I were really super cautious about like our food and water and about COVID stuff and everything, and we were feeling great. And it's like a 5 to 7 day trek to base camp, and the whole way, like we just had relentless heat. Like it was 105 degrees. It was so brutal. And then about day 6 of the trek in, we're getting to like 15,000 feet. We're pretty high. Like we have our first views of K2, and like 8 hours into, it was like a 13-mile day hiking. And at 10 miles, I just like felt really hot. I felt like I was going to faint. And then I started throwing up. And I threw up like 30 times. And it was so bad. And I had like with it this really intense dizziness and like this feeling like I was going to faint. So I couldn't walk. And our team was already at the next camp, which was 3 miles ahead. And like I would walk for like 10 minutes and then I'd have to lie down because I felt like I would fall and faint. And then I'd start throwing up. And I just like was so dehydrated and so faint and dizzy. I couldn't walk. And I ended up having to be carried to the next camp by our porter team.
Oh, shit.
And then I spent like a day at that camp just sleeping the whole day. And then the next day I walked to base camp 7 miles, and I was like super sick, and I didn't eat anything. And then we got to base camp and I started to get a bit better. And then Rob got super sick. Oh. And so Rob had like this GI thing, and then we both got really gnarly upper respiratory infections, like sinus infections. And we couldn't like get higher on the mountain to acclimatize. Like we had good weather, but we were both so sick, like we could hardly get out of the tent. And Rob was like barely able to make it to the toilet in time. And he was like taking the antibiotics and taking Imodium every time. I think he took like 20 Imodiums. Holy shit. Like it was really bad. Like, and Rob and I, like, we've been sick on big mountains, and we've spent a lot of time in tents and storms. And so like this was different. It was like much worse. It was so miserable. So we're at almost 17,000 feet at base camp, and the weather's nice. And so our team, the rest of our team, like we were sharing the logistics with with Alpenglow, with like their climbing team. And then Rob and I were like self-guided. And so the rest of the team went up and acclimatized and spent some nights at 20,000 feet and 21,000 feet higher on the mountain. And then they came back down. But Rob and I were so sick, we weren't able to get higher on the mountain. And then it was forecasted that there was going to be a week of bad weather, and then it was going to clear up again. And so just like we were thinking about the time plan with our logistics, and that we would have to like extend our trip because we'd have to wait for the bad weather to go up higher to acclimatize. We'd have to do a acclimatization rotation, then come back down, and then we'd have to go for the summit. And so we were looking at having to extend the trip by like 3 weeks, or like extend it an extra week, but it was going to be like 3 more weeks at base camp. And higher, and we were just like so miserable. So we decided just to pull the plug, and we never even got to see the mountain because you have to go to Camp 1 to see G2.
Hi there. I am interrupting my own conversation with Caroline Gleich to bring you 2 wonderful sponsors. Please listen to these ads because they get us paid and they're getting you deals, especially in this first scenario, saving 25% off. So listen to the freaking ad. Mammut wants to give you 25% off on anything on their website, including the best beacon known to mankind, which is the Berryvox. Berryvox and Berryvox S are point blank the best beacon out there. Ask anyone you know. That's the beacon to get. If you go to any shop and they tell you a beacon different than that one, they're wrong. Okay? There's a couple other good ones out there, but I'll tell you who's not doing recalls every 3 fucking days. Mammut and the Berryvox. So, also, avalanche packs or avalanche bags, airbags, some would say. Berryvox packages, which have a shovel, a probe, and a Berryvox at the great deal of $479, minus 25%. If you use promo code out of bounds 25, capital O, capital O, capital B. That's the key there. Okay. That's the part that Ethan screwed up. Capital O, capital O, capital B. For 25% off at mammut.com. Please use it. Get yourself a deal and be safe in the backcountry this year, please. Anyway, on to our second sponsor of the day, Fisker Skis. Just kidding. They're called Fisher. I broke Ethan for the first time. They make the best skis. I mean, point blank. Like, we know this. I've been talking about Fisher for a long, long time. They've been a wonderful supporter of the show. They have the best kids boot on planet Earth. Okay, I'm holding this. If you're looking at the YouTube and you're like, oh, what is this boot that he's talking about? We actually did a review on it that is really good, and it's out now. So check that out. But this boot is friggin' sick. If you have a kid and they got small feet and they're like a kid still, this boot is going to change their skiing for the rest of their life, and it's going to change your experience because they can actually put it on their foot, and it's comfortable. And, yeah, buy this boot. Really good. If your ski shop's not carrying it, tell them to carry it. Okay? They also have a brand new Ranger line. We'll talk about that as we get closer to ski season where, like, you guys start buying more skis. But let me tell you, Ranger 96 is going to be in the gear guide. It's a phenomenal ski. Mango Mania is coming back. It's a thing, rather. Mango Mania. Pink Ski Gang dead. Mango Mania is here. Okay, also, 109 for the little one, right? Wasn't it 109? Go back. Or is it 169? No, it says 10. It says 10. Oh, that's in fucking foreign. Okay. Anyway, 169. Whatever. It's a great deal. Buy this boot. Ranger series, Mango. What did I call it? Mango Mania. Mango Mania is out now. Go check that out. I also am really a big fan of the khaki colored Ranger 108. Ranger 108. Great ski. Big fan. New Ranger line. Go check it out. Fishersports.com. And we are back to our conversation with Caroline Gleich. Thank you. How disappointing is that? Obviously, it's very disappointing. So I'm not looking for like a one-word answer here. But how do you cope with that? How do you just accept the fact that it is what it is and move on?
Yeah, I mean, this trip made me really nervous because the Karakoram is the mountains are so steep, and base camp, it is so remote. Like, you feel like you're more remote than I felt in Antarctica. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just the foreignness of the culture and the food, and there's like that cultural challenge as well. Um, but I think that Rob and I have both spent enough time in the mountains to know that, like, when our intuition is saying no, that it's important to listen. And even though we spent a ton of time and money and energy getting there, that the mountain will always be there and we can go back as long as we're alive.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, like, the best shots of the trip are just me puking in front of K2. I'm so like I so like when we left, it was clear that it was the right thing to do. But then when I got home, like a week or two, I felt really depressed about it, and I felt like really upset. And the hardest part was like seeing that the weather cleared, and it was like an epic window, and like seeing people's success on all of the peaks in the Karakoram. Like the Karakoram is home to 5 of the world's 8,000-meter peaks, so 5 of the world's tallest peaks are there. And after the bad weather, it was just like this epic, super long, good weather window where tons of people summited all the peaks. And so that week was really hard for me because I just was really like replaying everything in like a bad spiral of anxiety in my mind, thinking like the shoulda, woulda, coulda. But we can go back, and I don't think Rob will go back, but I will definitely go back someday.
Rob's over it. Okay. Rob did not have FOMO from going home early.
Rob is like the most stoked person ever, and he was so over it. And we were just like laying there in misery, like in so much pain. And we were like, what are we doing? Like, we were really questioning our summer vacation decisions.
It's funny that this is a vacation for you. Like, this is the type of things you choose to vacation.
I spent a lot of my own money on the trip. Like, I paid for it 100% out of pocket. Like, I didn't get any sponsor money for it. I'm glad I didn't, because I didn't want any more pressure. Like, I feel enough pressure from myself and from like who I am and what I've accomplished. And so anyway, so I think in a way that was good, but yeah, it was a real questionable choice of vacation.
Yeah, for sure. On that topic, kind of, what people ask a lot, and people ask me a lot for some reason, how to kind of like figure out how to make money in skiing specifically, right? I think you're a great example of somebody who has made a career that's been long lasting and been at least able to survive and thrive and make enough to kind of stay within the industry forever, where in a lot of cases you see people kind of go away from the industry because it just financially doesn't make any fucking sense, right? So how have you made it so far? How do you provide value to your sponsors? And in your mind, can you make it with just money from skiing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was really lucky when I started my career. My parents linked me up with Kristen Ulmer, who was like one of the pioneers of women's free skiing, to give me some business mentorship. And so she really taught me it's not about you and your resume or like what flips you can do or what mountains you've climbed. It's about like the value you can provide to brands. And so that was really important to help set me up for success and to think about different creative ideas on how I could be an asset and helpful to brands. And I think it's one of those things that's constantly evolving, where it's just building and maintaining relationships and having those conversations and starting with like, how are you guys doing? Like, what can I do to help and support your goals? Rather than like, here's what I'm doing, like, here's what I need. And so I try to listen a lot and to spend time like nurturing and cultivating those relationships. And now the brands that I work for, they're like family. I mean, Lakey, I've been a sponsored athlete for them for 12 years, in Patagonia, 11 years. And yeah, they're like family.
Yeah. How do you make it work, I guess, with ski sponsors, right? Because that's one that I've noticed over the years that you've switched a few times. So how do you get them to pay you what you're worth, I guess is my question, because that's the one that I feel like they should be shelling out the big bucks for every athlete that they decide to bring onto their roster, but they never do. And we know they never do, right?
ski sponsors are really hard. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of money in hard goods, for one.
I don't know.
Are ski companies like, I don't know. I don't know their
ski
numbers.
Ski companies don't pay, but there's definitely a lot of sales. I mean, yes, are things more expensive to manufacture? For sure. But I can tell you, like, on the retail side of things, there's a lot of big money getting thrown around to these brands.
I mean, it's been a real challenge for me to find a brand that offers like the suite of skis that I'm looking for, from like a tiny little Skimo racing ski to like a big powder ski that goes to my size. And then like a brand that supports touring. Like there's not a lot of brands that are as focused on the uphill experience, you know? So, and as my career has evolved, like my needs and wants have also evolved, and I'm really picky when it comes to hard goods, especially boots. And I like to pick the best boots for whatever I'm doing. And there's not like one brand that offers a whole suite of boots that would work for all my expeditions and training. So like for me, I looked for a ski sponsor that just makes skis. And so it's been really cool to work with Elan over the last couple of years. And I feel like they've also listened to, like, I was like, you guys have to bring a Skimo race ski. And they brought it back, and I helped test the first prototypes of it. And then it's like coming to market in Europe this winter. So that's been cool. But no, like, I don't know. I don't make a lot of my income from a ski sponsor. It's a small part of it. And I don't know how people, if you wanted to, I guess it's like, I think you have to go with like the head to toe brands too that do soft goods. And I don't know. It's a hard question. Like there's definitely, for me, a bigger, like there's a good, for me, I like to have more of a diversified brand portfolio of like who I'm getting support from. So if one brand decides to cut all their athletes, then I don't lose my entire income.
Yeah. No, I think that's really smart. And I always question that with brands that do make everything. It's like, is that a smart business decision to go? I mean, yes, if the money's right, fuck it, right? Like just send it and do everything. If the money's like big enough, do it, because it can work out for you. But I have that same thought often, where I think diversifying to a certain point, as long as you don't have to sell your soul too much, I think a little bit of soul selling is okay every once in a while, because everybody needs to get fed. But it's it's an interesting topic, and I don't want to shit on ski companies, and Ben Fresco is a new friend of mine, and I don't want to Ben's probably listening to this like pulling his lack of hair out just on me saying that, you know, ski companies don't pay enough money. But it's interesting. It's just been always a very strange thing to me, because the money in skiing comes from outside of skiing.
Yeah, like I haven't like when I've switched sponsors in the past, it's not because I wanted to. Like usually it's because I was fired. I don't know if I can say that. I should like double check my contracts. Or like I had one brand who just decided they weren't going to pay me my salary that was like in my contract. And I had to hire a lawyer, and it took 2 years.
And then you're paying
to get my retainer payment, which was like a really small payment. Yeah. Like we're not talking about very much money here.
Yeah. That's insane to me that people just don't pay. Like that's a thing that happens, I think, not only in skiing, but it happens a lot more often in skiing, because they're just like, we had a bad year. It didn't snow. Like,
yeah. Or like we're going in a different direction. So like, we're not going to, or they told me my contract was never countersigned by their CEO, and we were in year 2 of a 3-year contract. So they paid me for the first year. And so it was ridiculous. Like it was such a fight. And honestly, like I just try to keep my head up and not get too bummed and not complain too much, because I'm afraid I'll get fired.
Oh my God. You're probably making people nervous. You're making me nervous. Ethan, can you go check that the CEOs have all signed our contracts for this show?
No, there's a thing that like if they act like the contract is like if you do the contract work and they act like it's valid, then you are protected legally.
Okay.
I talked to a lawyer about it. Yeah.
Okay.
But definitely like working with a lawyer, like I don't have an agent, but I definitely hire a lawyer now to help me with things more, and that's been really helpful.
Have you considered an agent? I guess at this point in your career, you're well known enough that you don't necessarily need one, but
I would love an agent. I just haven't found someone who to work with. So if there's any like ski sports agents out there that want to work with me, I'd love to chat.
Tom Yaps. I keep plugging Tom Yaps just so that he'll let me have Eileen on the show, but that's the only.
Oh yeah.
That's the only one that I know of. That I guess Pettit's age. I forget what his name is. Superheroes Management or whatever. There's a few good ones out there.
Yeah, I'd love to connect with them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I make enough money for them, so we'd have to see.
I think if they're representing skiers, you're probably doing okay, and they're aware of what people make, and I think their goal is to probably fix that problem.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. I mean, like my dream has always been to be doing this until I'm like 80 or 100. So it's not
what?
Like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to be a mountaineer and a ski mountaineer. Like, I want to do it for life. You know, I see people like high altitude stuff. You get better with age for sure.
Okay.
And so my dream is not to like retire and start a new career, but I think that I will have a lot of work cut out for me ahead, like challenging ageism in skiing. When I'm like when I'm an old woman, like I want to do this forever. That's always been my dream. Like there's not another plan. This is my plan. This is my career.
You're one of the few people that have come on here and said that. Like everybody else is like, here's my backup plan. I guess, yeah, Ian McIntosh was like, I'm going to guide. Like, and that's close enough, but it's, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's people always ask me like, oh, what's going to be your real job? Or like, what are you going to do when you have kids? And it's like, I really despise those questions. I really do. I mean, they're fair. Like you can always ask, but I don't think it's fair 100% because I want to create like a model for myself and for other people that have like dreams of mountaineering where it's like a deep lifelong commitment to the mountains. It's not just something you do when you're young.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. This is the last thing I kind of want to ask you about. Activism wise, how do you decide what you're going to be an activist about, right? Like, and I know the easy answer is like, I care. This is something I really care about it personally. Like I'm attached to it personally, but like, I always feel like you personally, and there's quite a few others that are just advocating for so many things, right? So at a certain point, that message almost becomes like, I feel like the message gets lost a little bit for people at a certain level, right? I think your audience almost doesn't, not that they don't get what you represent, but they're like, oh, we really get what you're trying to represent. Like we almost to the point where the message isn't heard to the same level. Do you feel that way, or do you feel like it's heard more when you have more things to talk about?
The way that I see it is that I don't think you can care too much about people and the planet.
Okay. That's a good answer.
And so if there's something that you see and you have the time and the resources to do something about it, I think that you should. Absolutely. I've learned that how we treat people is how we treat the planet. And so a lot of issues of social and environmental justice are inextricably linked. So I believe like that advocating for gender equality will also help with climate policy. Because when we support women, we create like a path for leadership. And when we have more women as like elected officials, we have better climate policy. Like the more we can take care of people and the more we can help with the enormous privilege and resources that we have, we should. Like, I don't think you can care too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I don't think you can care too much either. I always just worry about the messaging that comes across and if it's effective enough, right? And I don't know if it's your job to be effective, or if it's your job just to care, or if it's your job in general to do any of it, or you just do it because you like it. And that's one of the things that I always look at when somebody has a social following, right? And they're an athlete / influencer / activist / whatever. How are they putting that message across in the most effective way to their audience, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think that we have a lot deeper reserves than we know, and we should be speaking up and advocating on a lot more because there's a lot of inequity and there's a lot of like messed up things in the world. And if more people use their voices, we could change them. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that answer. I like that answer a lot.
Yeah. I don't think you can care too much.
I think that's great. I think that's a beautiful thing.
We have a deep well of like love and I don't know, being concerned about the well-being of other people and the planet. Like a lot of beauty comes from that and a lot of connection and community. And like we all need more of that stuff.
Yeah. For someone that gets figuratively beat up on the internet as much as you do, you're very positive, and this is very nice to hear, I think. And it's nice to hear for people that you're like, I'm looking at the positive side of things and I care a lot. Like that's genuine, and it feels genuine. Like it sounds genuine. And I think when you talk to somebody and you hear it, you can tell whether it's genuine or not. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it comes from my parents. My mom and dad are both doctors, and like they've devoted their entire lives to trying to help their patients and to try to improve people's quality of lives. And so they were like, being a skier is not a career. Like you're not helping the world. And so I think that looking at ways that we can make the world a better place, or at least like try to support other people's leadership on initiatives, like the more we can do that, the better.
Yeah.
It's not like my mom is like, it's not enough just to ski.
Yeah. I mean, and in a way she's right.
Yeah. And skiers, like we have so many resources and privileges. And with those, I think come a huge responsibility.
Totally. And I think it's ridiculous for people to assume that skiers don't do anything other than ski.
Yeah, and it's super easy to like write a post and share a link or to do a fundraiser. Like I feel like all the issues that I've engaged on, they've been really fun and they've connected me to different groups. And I'm really happy on a lot of the different issues that I've engaged on.
Good.
And I also think this stuff is all super connected. And you don't just have to stay in your lane. Like I think that's some weird PR campaign designed to like.
Oh yeah. It's the dumbest thing that's ever, yeah. And I'm glad that it kind of has gotten shut down a little bit, right? Like, it's just like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the last things I want to talk to you about, and then I'll let you get out of here. There was a certain article that came out in a certain magazine. People probably know what I'm talking about, or they don't know what I'm talking about. The article referenced, first of all, let me just say, the article was not about what people made it about, and that's one of the things that I think we'll kind of get into a little bit here is most people did not read the article. They read a couple screenshots that people put out on the internet, and then they made it about whatever they felt like it was about. And I think that's what caused the problem. But there was an article that called out a bunch of, they named them as, the author named them as influencers as opposed to athletes, which I didn't love right off the bat. Named a bunch of influencers and said that like we need to hold, the title of the article is like, how are we holding our outdoor influencers accountable or something like this, right? And then it goes and like kind of flames people for taking PPP loans during COVID, and that became this big thing where like everybody was attacking what everybody was doing at that time, how they spent their money, whether it was legitimate or not, and then people like yourself kind of having to come out and be like, what the fuck? Like, why do I have to legitimize my own career, right? Like, why do I have to prove that this is crazy. This whole situation is crazy. And I thought that you would probably have something to say about the article that came out. And I guess obviously people know it came out in Mountain Gazette. I don't know. I wasn't going to talk about the article that much, and I haven't really talked about it that much since it came out, and because of how much negativity was attached to it. But I kind of want to hear your thoughts on it and what happened and how you perceived it right off the bat.
Yeah. Well, I was contacted by the journalist about the article in January, and I just found like the tone and the way that he was, it kind of felt really antagonistic.
Okay.
And so I didn't respond. And I'm really bummed because like Mountain Gazette, like I have such a soft spot. I really believe in like what the magazine is trying to do, like to resurface this old school print magazine with like beautiful photography and high quality journalism. Like I really believe in supporting a free and independent press. And like I subscribe and pay for a lot of different publications because I really respect the work of journalists. In this case, I felt like the journalist was really out of line, and I was personally kind of like insulted and felt attacked by the way that he reached out to me. And like you said too, calling me an outdoor influencer, like I really despise being called I don't identify as an influencer, and I don't think anyone who sets out to become an influencer will actually become that, because like having influence is about being a leader, and like being a leader comes from different things, not trying to be an influencer.
It's a very good point.
That's my 2 cents. Like I've always, like, I'm a ski mountaineer and I'm an activist, like that's, and an adventure athlete. Like those are how I identify. So anyway, yeah, like it was one of my worst nightmares to be kind of like mob attacked like that online. I got a lot of really nasty comments, and I was in Pakistan and I had like 1 hour of really slow satellite internet a day. And like it was really stressful for me, and it was like kind of traumatizing because it opened a lot of wounds for me of like having my legitimacy and my credibility attacked. Yeah, like this notion that I'm not real, or like I paid my way to the top of the mountain, or like I haven't really accomplished all the things that I have. There's just so many different ways that people in the outdoor community have tried to rewrite my accomplishments in the court of public opinion, and I felt like this was another way of trying to delegitimize me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of people that were mentioned in that article, pretty much everybody that was mentioned did not respond. And my opinion and my thought on it was like, okay, if you didn't respond, that doesn't mean you should get flamed in a magazine, right? Like that was, to me, like nobody owes you a response to anything, but at the same time, if you guys respond, chances are you get left out of it, right? So it's like, it felt like punishment to me for not answering an email. And to me, I felt a little weird about the framing of it, and I felt like it was kind of, the question is allowed to be asked. I don't have a problem with the question being asked, right? Like, are we holding people in the outdoors accountable for what they do, for what they spend? I don't really think that that's a problem to ask. What I had a problem with is the way that the line was drawn, and I told Ari this. I think that the way that the actual article draws a line between Mattia Snark, or whatever her name is, Brianna Mattia. Mattia Snark is the Reddit feed that all this stemmed from. Drawing that line to her like running over her own dog and not telling people about it and having a fundraiser for, like, that line to people taking PPP loans is a crazy line to draw to me. Like that was like very bizarre.
Yeah, and also I think it's important to differentiate that, like, I work for my own like S corp. Like I have an S corp called Big Mountain Dreams, and like I do all my business under that. So it wasn't like me as an individual taking that money. It was like my business took that money.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. That's one of the arguments that the people on the articles or on the publication side have said is like, oh, yes, there's one employee, there's two employees involved in this company, right? So technically you are taking that money, but it's like, that's very different, right? Just because you're a single person doesn't mean that you're not a business. Like it's like that you don't make business deals, that's how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, and like at the beginning of COVID, I lost like one of my biggest sponsors. They terminated all their athlete contracts, and like a lot of my upcoming work just grinded to a halt. And it was really stressful for me. Like as a young person, I started my career in like the Great Recession of 2008. And it was grim when I started working in the outdoor world. Like it was really hard to get paid. And so it like brought me back to that. And I was like going into full survival mode where I'm like counting Cliff Bars and like planning the backyard garden. So if we like can't afford to buy groceries, like we could grow them in the backyard, you know? Like it was really stressful for me. And when COVID started, and then this whole like backlash that I got of people just going into like all the things of my life and being like, give us your Tesla, like we own this car. And it's not even my car, like it's my husband's. He bought it, and we bought a used 2016 Model X for $40,000.
Like yeah, it's not like
we got a really good deal on it. Like we paid less than most people pay for like their regular vehicles. So it's not like I don't know. Anyway, it's his car. It's not registered to me. I just like to pretend it's my car. But all these people are like, your Pakistani trip is paid for by the U.S. taxpayer. And it just made me so upset, this like hate mob I got, because I also felt like the editor of the magazine and the journalist, they knew that was going to happen. And I just feel like I felt really sad and I felt really angry. I still feel angry about it. And I felt like it was really inappropriate because what I do is legitimate, and I've spent a lot of my life trying to get better and like to do a really good job. Like I take this stuff really seriously and I love my work and it's my passion. It's my whole life. And to have someone just dismiss everything I've created, it was really hurtful.
Yeah. A friend of mine, Brooks Curran, said to me that we as creators or artists or skiers or whatever shouldn't have to legitimize our careers to anyone. Right? Like that's our career is our career. And if we can make it, we can make it. Right? Like that's the court of public opinion does not get to decide if the way that you make your money is legitimate. Right? Unless it's illegal. Right? If it's illegal, like we're in a different conversation. But if you can make a living doing something legal that you love doing, I don't understand people's problem with it. And I definitely don't understand people's problem with it if like you followed the correct steps, you did the right things, taking PPP loans. And I've said it on the show already, like if we needed it and if we could have taken PPP loans as a business, like I would have done it. Like, but we didn't need it. It didn't affect us. It actually, COVID probably helped our business more than anything. And like that's just it's the reality of the situation. And I just think that there's a certain lack of responsibility that I think happened with the way that article was written that made me a little uncomfortable. And it's tough because I like you said, I really like the magazine. I think what they're doing is great in a lot of ways. And I think that Ari's a great journalist in a lot of ways. Like I think he does a lot of great work. If you look at some of the other things that he's done, I just felt like being like not posting it after the amount of traction that it got online and the amount of hate that was being spewed to real people and impacting them in real ways in real life. And then being like, oh, the only way that you can read the magazine is if you pay us money and you get the magazine seemed crazy to me. But I don't know, because the article wasn't fucking about that. That's the whole thing. Like that's my.
I know, and I just wish all those people that were hating on us would take some of that energy and pivot towards holding fossil fuel companies accountable for the 2 billion, maybe. Or is it trillion? I can't remember.
A big number.
That they took in subsidies from the American taxpayers last year. I started looking at some numbers on that, and the fossil fuel subsidies are ridiculous. The way that we are padding the pockets of big oil and keeping us addicted to fossil fuels. And so I wish people could take their energy and do something more positive with it. That would actually have a good impact on the future of snow sports.
Yeah, I agree. And
we need to end those subsidies. Not like, I have no problem with like having received that money, and it really helped me get through those 2 months and to restructure my business and to, do what I needed to do to get through and survive.
Yeah, and honestly, like I think that part is not even super relevant. It was just weird. I think people don't understand what the loans were for, what they were designed for. And I also think that like everybody has a certain level of empathy towards a local business that they know that went out of business during COVID, right? That couldn't make it happen even with a PPP loan, or they didn't apply in the right way, so they got denied, or whatever the reason is that things couldn't happen. So people have empathy for those people, and then they look at an athlete that makes it and that has a career and they go, oh, fuck you because you made it and this person didn't. And I just think that's such a crazy scarcity mindset to have when things happen like at a much larger scale in such a negative way. And again, let me be clear. Like I in no way want any harm to come to the magazine. I don't think that anything negative should happen to them. Like I actually like what they put out. Everybody makes mistakes. I mean, God knows I've made a fucking 1,000 mistakes on this show.
Yeah.
I just would have liked to see it handled differently is all.
I feel like when Mike started the magazine, like he reached out to me and I helped share it and like support it. And I was always a big champion for what he was doing. And so just on a personal level, I really wish he would have just got me on the horn before it went to print and be like, hey, we're about to run this. Like, you have a last chance. As your friend, I'm calling you to see. Instead of like this crazy antagonistic email from Ari And so I guess like the whole thing, I don't want to talk about it too much because I'm trying to move on a personal level. No, it's okay. But yeah, I felt like there was a layer of sexism as well, as like the vast majority of the people that he spoke about were women.
Yeah. I think it was like 5 out of 6.
Yeah, I think he talked about Brody and Andrew Muse as well. Like he didn't like, I don't know. It's just like.
It was weird. I thought the whole article, I actually really liked the article until it got to that point. Like until it got to that like 10 sentences. I was like, why does this even need to be brought up? Because the line doesn't need to be drawn here. It was bizarre. And it just caused like 2 weeks of stress for so many people. And like, it was just maybe more for you if you're holding on to it for a year.
I mean, I feel like it contributed to like my sickness in Pakistan because like, honestly, that kind of thing is just one of my worst nightmares. Yeah. And so it was so stressful for me to try to like people that I know, like people close to me were like texting me about how bad some of the meme accounts were about like putting my name in these meme accounts. And I couldn't like pull up anything because the Wi-Fi, it was literally like a 90s dial-up connection. Best. It was so slow. And so I was kind of freaking out. And then the stress on top of like all of the stress of being in Pakistan and being on like one of the biggest, hardest expeditions of my life. It was really tough.
I get it. I get it. That is it's difficult. So anyway,
I just wish I wish Mike would have just called me, and I'd still love to chat with him about it.
Yeah, I guess that line of communication is open, and I've offered everybody basically the chance to just come on and talk about it as a group too, if people wanted to talk about it, and that offer still kind of stands. I'd like to move on from it myself, but I didn't put out the Ari episode, so people have still been down my throat about like talk about it at some point, and I'm like, okay, fine, like Caroline's coming on, we'll talk about it.
It's not my favorit topic.
It'd be avoidant to not talk about it at all, so I tried to not do that. But anyway, let's end on a better note here. What do you have coming up? What's going on in the future? And obviously we're at the point in the season where everybody starts to freak out about the upcoming season and their big plans. Like, what do you have coming out in the fall? What do you have going on for the season that you have planned that you're excited about?
Yeah, in about 5 weeks, my partner and I and his parents are going to Tanzania to climb Kilimanjaro.
Sick.
And so I'm really excited to do Kili with Rob's parents, who are like in their 70s, like early and mid 70s. And to kind of like disrupt the narrative that, like what we were talking about earlier, that this kind of stuff is just for young people. I think we can learn a lot about setting big goals, no matter how old you are, and about the aging process and aging gracefully. So I'm excited to spend some time on the mountain with my in-laws and try to take them to 19,000 feet.
That's nuts. That's very cool. And yeah, that is very very like what you just talked about. And it's funny because I laugh at the idea of like, okay, like, yeah, you want to be 80 and you want to climb mountains and do that stuff, but it's like, it's very realistic. Like, it's totally possible people do it now. It's just that we don't think about it and they don't care to put it on social media.
Yeah, and you don't see like the 80-year-old mountaineer like on a billboard or in a magazine on the cover, but I think we need to change that.
I think they also just don't give a shit. There's probably a certain
80-year-olds?
I think they're probably like, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Like knowing my 80-year-old grandparents, anytime they get any attention for anything they do, they're like stress, just overwhelming stress. And that's locally.
That could be internalized ageism.
Is that what you think it is?
I do think that ageism is much more prevalent in our culture than we really think. And maybe. Yeah, we have a lot of stereotypes and attitudes and prejudice towards older people, for sure. And like what they're capable of. And so, yeah, that's my dream, is like to be, maybe I'll have kids too and be like a parent that people think is really irresponsible. When my partner and I like leave the kids for a month and go on expeditions. But I mean, I've always done things my own way, and like, again, this has been my dream ever since I can remember, and I don't want to give it up just because I get to a certain age and people think I'm irrelevant.
Well, Caroline, I can't wait to read the headline in 50 years that says Caroline Gleich, irresponsible parent or aging
Skis
activist or
Everest.
whatever the fuck. Yeah, like who knows? Where can people find you on the internet? Where can people send nice things your way on social media? And anything else you have going on, feel free to plug.
Yeah, I'm always like trying to share calls to action about activism on Instagram, and that's probably the biggest way that I'm keeping in touch with the world. So just at Caroline Gleich, Gleich.
Awesome. Thank you for the time, Caroline.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Of course.